Ay, ay, ay. I knew I was going to mess something up. Our second topic today is a brief update on our alternative programs. Before I go on, I would like to give my colleagues a moment to introduce with themselves. I'm going to start on my left.
Good morning, Rita Montoya, Montgomery County Board Member at Large. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. I know we had a delay for our school systems today, so I appreciate you doing your best to get here. Thank you.
And Laura Stewart, I am from District 4. I am happy to be here at my first committee meeting. So I hope to learn a lot from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you to my colleagues. It's great to have you on board. I look forward to working with you for the next year. Then I would like to ask if there are any questions or concerns about the September 19th summary. I know neither of you were there, but I know you guys are diligent and do your homework. So if there are none, I would like to move to the next point.
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's get started. I welcome the team to the table. Thank you so much for being here. Just take a minute, please, to introduce yourselves.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tamara Hewlett. I'm the Director of the Department of English Learners and Multilingual Education.
Hi, good morning. I'm the principal of Seven Locks Elementary School. Glad to be here. Ilana Carr.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Russian. I am the Physical Education Instructional Specialist, pre-K through 12.
At?
Curriculum and Instruction.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. My name is Roy Liebert. I am the principal of Montgomery Village Middle School.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. My name is Susan Bickel, and I'm the English Language Development Content Specialist at Montgomery Village Middle School.
Good morning, Stephanie Lopez. I'm the Science Content Specialist, also at Montgomery Village Middle School.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming on this very, very cold day. I appreciate you. And with that, let's start. And looking forward to the presentation and the conversation.
Sure, thank you. And just to note, we will have some other members join us at the table. We're going to play a little musical chairs at one point. Okay? All right, so again, good afternoon, board members. My name is Tamara Hewlett. I'm the Director of the Department of English Learners and Multilingual Education. Today, I'm here to talk about professional learning that is occurring across the district to improve outcomes for our emergent multilingual learners. Today, I'm joined by staff members that represent various roles and experiences from the K-12 framework and central office to highlight the successes, challenges, and needs that we have in delivering professional learning. As a district, next slide, can we have the slide deck, please? Thank you. Next slide, please. So as a district, our emergent multilingual learner population is growing rapidly. This is not only a pattern that we're seeing in our local education agency, but it's a pattern that we're seeing in Maryland and across the nation. With this rapidly changing landscape, staff need to know how to meet the needs of our student population that come to school full of promise, but not with enough English to easily access instruction. As a school system, we are not in the position yet to know that pre-service teachers are receiving adequate learning about language development in the college and university setting. And we have to consider our current cadre of teachers who also need professional learning on what it means to deliver English language development instruction in a content setting to our students. As a result of these points, it's important that we prioritize professional learning for our staff on language development and language access to content instruction in the content instruction area as well as at the district level in order to deliver and provide guidance that helps our student achievement data increase for our EMLs. Before I go straight into professional learning development and our efforts, I wanted to orient our board members and the public to some of the data that provides a profile of the students that we serve in our English language development program in order to understand why we have operationalized the professional learning that we have and why those offerings are in response to what we're seeing in our data. It's important that we contextualize the hard work that our EMLs do every day and the work that is happening on behalf of them from our staff members. Next slide, please. So when we talk about our emergent multilingual learners, we should start at the basics. As you can see, over the past several years, our student population has been increasing by about 1,000 students every year. We ended last school year with 32,841 EMLs enrolled in our ELD, English Language Development Program. These counts are based on the June 1st counts. June 1st is when we have our highest enrollment, and so we want to make sure we capture an accurate number of EMLs in program. As of December 31st of this school year, we have 32,587 EMLs in program, and we expect to surpass last June's count in the coming months. Montgomery County Public Schools has the second highest enrollment of EMLs across all of the state local education agencies. Next slide, please. Here we see a breakdown of the English proficiency levels of our EMLs, our emergent multilingual learners. You will see ELP 1, that's English Language Proficiency 1, and all the way through ELP 4, which is our English Language Proficiency Level 4 students. And this represents their proficiency levels as indicated by the WIDA Access for ELS assessment. An English language proficiency level indicates that students are demonstrating English language usage that represents the beginning stages of English. Communicating with words and utterances, that's what we would consider like a ELP level 1, words and utterances. And conversely, comprehending few words and utterances in English. Students grow in their proficiency levels up to a measured proficiency level of 4.4 before they are exited out of the ELD program with a 4.5 or higher English language development score on the WIDA Access for ELS assessment. As I've shared before in previous testimony, it is important to understand that while students may exit at a 4.5 overall proficiency level, it is important to know that those students are also still growing in their English language proficiency, because WIDA, which is the framework that we use for language development, measures up until an English language proficiency of 6. But in the state of Maryland, we exit students out of the program with a 4.5 or high overall proficiency score. This is why it's important to know that we monitor students for 2 years after they exit the program. These data show that we have more than 17,000 students demonstrating proficiency in the beginning stages of the English language development trajectory. That is over 50% of our students in our program. Then we see that we have over 10,000 students at the English language proficiency level of 3, which is where we see the increased demand of use of academic language and the level in which our students, our teachers may not pay as close attention to our students, and where our students may stagnate and hang out at this level. This is because at level 3, students start having a stronger command of social language and can appear unsuspecting to teachers that they have a command of the academic language, thus not needing explicit language instruction. And then we have about 3,000 students at proficiency level of 4 who are in the same boat. They're close to exiting and may hide out in terms of having enough English, the idea that they have enough command of English to be able to access content, but they too still need support in content areas. So we expect to see our 1s and 2s grow rapidly in their English proficiency and slow down when they hit 3s and 4s, because that is what language research shows is the trajectory for language development. Next slide, please.
Sorry, just for the audience, could you tell us what's SS for the public?
Oh, I'm sorry. SS is our special schools.
Thank you.
And we have the racial ethnic groups categories. Next slide, please.
Thank you.
So I'm telling a story and I'm adding on the layers of the complexity of the students we serve. We often talk about newcomers, and I want to make sure we are talking about the same students. For a few years, people were equating the word newcomers to our students who were coming in with interrupted education, and that might be true, but they're a whole other category as well. But according to the Nationwide Office of English Language Acquisition, a newcomer is defined as any foreign-born students and their families who recently arrived in the United States. When we look at the definition provided by the Maryland State Department of Education, and we talk about what this means, this title of newcomer means for the impact of how we score students, the MSDE defines a recently arrived EL, English learner, emergent multilingual learner, as one who attends schools in the United States for less than 12 months. Now, this is important because for the reading, when students take the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program, they are able to sit the test for the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment reading test, but their scores don't count. But after the 12-month period, then they are counted in the subset. Next slide, please. When we think about our continually shifting demographic, and we're defining our newcomers, we have to remember that there's our students who are new to the United States. And let's take a look, for example, at what our newcomer counts sort of looked like and why it's hard to pinpoint the exact counts of those students. So we mapped out students who entered MCPS and students who left MCPS. This is all just a snapshot from the 2024 school year. So last year, roughly, out of the 32,000 students we had in program, about 6,722 students entered into MCPS last school year and enrolled in our English language development program. Of the students that came through the international office, 3,088 of them qualified for ELD services and enrolled in the program. So we can assume that the majority of these students are newcomers. I say that because sometimes students who are gone, who came in through the international office at one point, leaves and goes away for 2 or more years. They have to come back through the international office. They technically aren't newcomers any longer, but their route is through the international office. So roughly, the majority of them are true newcomers per the definition, but we don't have an accurate count on that. We also know that we had 3,053 students start the program in kindergarten. Now, some of these students may be newcomers because the international office does not screen kindergartners for English language development. So those students go directly to the school and the school screens them for the program. So there's a subset of these incoming case students that are also newcomers, but a large majority of those students are born in the United States. And then we also had over 600 students transfer into our district from Maryland counties or other states. Some of these students may also technically be newcomers because once you enroll into a public school and you transfer schools, now you go directly to that school, you go directly to the schools to enroll and not through the international office. So as you can see, it's a very fluid, moving target, and our students are coming in and out. Now let's look at the students who left MCPS. We see that we had a number of students leave the program last school year. Almost 3,000 of them exited the ELD program, so we call that an exiting program. Yay, they acquired enough English proficiency that they tested at a 4.5 or higher on the WIDA Access for ELS assessment, and so they exited. So they count in terms of our exiting the program. We also had about 2,000 transfer out of MCPS to go to other districts or states. And then we have our 12th graders who leave the system, who did not exit the program before they left the system, but they still count towards our no longer our inactive counts in our program.
Very quickly, do you have a breakdown on that group of what levels they were at when they exited the program? The grade 12?
The grade 12. I do not, I can have it for you.
Okay.
By the time we.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'll pull it up. We can have the breakdown of the levels of the 12th graders, yes. Next slide, please. Now we're going to take a look at how students are growing in their language development. This image represents the annual growth targets our students are expected to meet while they're in a program per Maryland State Department of Education. As you can see, every emergent multilingual learner does not have the same projected exit path as each other. So in our Maryland framework, this can be difficult to understand, but once you understand it, you get it, right? So in our Maryland framework, if you look at the 1.0 to the 1.9 row, everybody there? Okay, so if you look at the 1.0 to the 1.9 row, imagine that that's the first assessment that the student takes in program. And they scored an overall proficiency level of a 1.8. That puts that student in that row, which then determines their path and how long they can stay in the program. So a student that scores anywhere from a 1.0 to a 1.9 on their first MCAP WIDA Access for ELS assessment will have 6 years to reach a 4.5 to exit out of the ELD program versus a student who scored a 4.0 to a 4.4 on their first access assessment. For those students who scored in the 4.0 to 4.4 range, they will have 3 years in the program before being expected to exit the program. Each year on their path, they are expected to hit a certain target. So those numbers in between the initial year and the end, every year they're in the program, they're expected to hit the target, hit the target, hit the target, keep going, because that's after the research done by the Maryland State Department of Education, they have determined that that's the adequate growth that a student performing at that proficiency level should grow in order to make those targets. So let's see how our students performed on the WIDA 2024 Access Assessment. Next slide, please. Here we can see our historical growth and our most recent growth for the WIDA Access for ELS assessment by school level. We can see that 2/3 of our students at the elementary level met their growth targets or exited. While at the middle school level, we see that less than 1/4 of our students, and at the high school level, slightly higher than 1/4 of our high school students met their growth targets. We have work to do, and yet I do want to take a moment to celebrate the amazing prowess of all of our students, especially those that met their growth target. Every day, our EMLs come to school and do double duty in the cognitive load area where they are trying to learn language and content simultaneously. If you look a little closer at the student counts, you will realize that we don't have the total count of all EMLs factored into these numbers. This is because, if you remember, we had over 6,000 students starting entering last school year, the missing numbers represent a large chunk of our students who don't have 2 consecutive test years. So many of the students not accounted for in those counts either took, the vast majority of them took the WIDA Access for ELS assessment for the very first time. And so when they take the assessment again, then we will be able to measure growth. Some of the students did not finish the complete battery of tests, which also invalidates an overall score. It's not in the thousands, but we do have some students who, for whatever reason, don't get to finish the assessment, and so they are also counted in those numbers. These data right here helped us to inform the strategic and necessary steps that we needed to take on behalf of our EMLs. Next slide, please. Here's just another visual that helps you understand the growth by level. Next slide, please. And here we can see the amazing progress that almost 3,000 of our students made last year as they exited the ELD program. Here we see the exits by level. Next slide, please. And here we take a more zoomed in look by grade level. And as you can see, we exit the most of our students in grades 4 and 5, which makes sense when you think about what research shows about how long it takes to learn a language. This is assuming that many of our students started in K and stayed throughout the program. But we know, based on all the data that we've viewed so far, our student population is a very fluid population. So many of these students who exited may not have started in kindergarten. It's just how their language has grown, when they entered, how the language has grown. But the vast majority, and we see this year after year, for our students who started in K, they exit by grades 4 and 5, a large majority of them. Next slide, please.
Just really quickly, in the slide before, do you have an idea, like you said, of those children that exited EML in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade? Do you have an idea where they started, at what level? Because like you said, when they take the test, they could be in a different trajectory. So I guess for me, and I don't know for my colleagues, it might be helpful to know exactly where they started, because then it gives us an idea also for resources where we want to focus.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have that breakdown, that would be really helpful. And those numbers will be really helpful next to the other group to give us an idea when they took all the tests and you have like 11,000 kids in elementary school who passed. It'd be great to have this next to it and be in which grades they passed. And then the next table would be the kids who passed, they started at this level of EML.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've done
Sorry, it's just very visual.
Yes, we've done internal longitudinal studies to see. We've crunched some numbers about the typical growth and the average growth. So we'll work with our Office of Shared Accountability to ensure we can get that data to you. Okay, where did I go? Okay, next slide, please. Wait. Go back, thanks. We didn't see that one. Oh, so here is the breakdown by race and ethnicity. It's important to note that we applied our data suppression rules, which means that any student count that's equal to or under 10, or any percentages of performance that's equal to or under 5%, we have to suppress. But here it is by our race and ethnic groups. Next slide, please.
Quick question on that one. I'll get ahead because, there's going to be a lot of questions. On that table, when you have all the test takers,
Yes.
is there going to be one where it's going to be breakdown by grades?
We can definitely provide
Like
that.
when you have
The race and ethnicity by grade level?
Exactly.
Yes, I mean, we can provide that as a follow-up.
Okay. Thank you.
Next slide, please. adding one more layer to the story that is our emergent multilingual learners and the work we have to do. When we talk about our students who are receiving special education services, so they have a dual code. So students receiving special education services and students who are receiving English language development services. We can see that 253 of those students who receive both types of services exited the program last year. And that may lead you to the question of how many students do we have this year receiving those services? Well, I have an answer. Next slide. So if we look at our duly coded students in the yes column, you will see that we have, did we go to the next slide? Yeah, there we go. You will see that we have a breakdown by level of how many students are receiving special education services and English language development services by level. And I just want to remind the board and the public that the Office of Special Education is working in collaboration with our department, the Department of English Learners and Multilingual Education, on the Rose Grant and the activities of the Rose Grant to ensure that we are not over-identifying students for these services, and while in program, ensuring that they have the correct access and necessary support to continue their growth, both academically and linguistically. Next slide. This is the last layer I'm going to add before questions and comments. Last layer is that conversation about long-term emergent multilingual learners. So I explained the top graph to you. We decided to extend the graph so that we can see where exactly a student would become long-term. So as you remember, I explained the growth target chart a little earlier, which is the top chart. The chart on the bottom continues the pathway to demonstrate one way of defining our long-term emergent multilingual learners. Funny enough, I raised the topic of the definition of long-term emergent multilingual learners at my state collaborative that I just had last week, because I was curious as to how other districts, other LEAs were defining and categorizing their long-term EMLs. Not surprised, many of us are doing many things that are not the same. And so that begs to question work that we need to do with the state. So the Maryland State Department of Education says more than 5 years. Some LEAs do more than 6 years. Some LEAs do the growth to target pathway, which is the bottom, because it says if you are expected to exit at this time, if you don't exit, then what does that make you long-term? So the data you are going to see matches the data for the bottom chart. And I am going to share the number that if we calculated it, our Office of Shared Accountability partnered with us and calculated the number of students who are in program for 7 or more years. And so I'll share that with you as well. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So here we see data on the long-term EMLs by grade level and what % of the grade level are long-term by counts and percentages. So I'll give us just a couple of seconds.
So just for the sake of our public at home who's watching, the thousands of people who are watching, just explain like grade, 5th grade.
Yes.
What do those numbers mean?
So for our 5th grade numbers, let me zoom in a little. So for our 5th grade numbers, it shows for the long-term the LTL yes category in 5th grade. If we look at all of the 5th grade emergent multilingual learners and where they took their initial proficiency assessment and when they were supposed to score a 4.5 or higher, we have 133 5th graders across the district who are off the chart. So now they're in the long-term realm, whether it's they started at a 1 or they started at a 4, they are off their path. And so now they're in the long-term zone of the path on the previous page. If you could go back to the previous page. So where it says for the 4s, they're in year, the 4s, they're either in their year 4, 5, 6, but it wouldn't be 6 because they're 5th graders, but they're in whatever year it is. Or we know that those students did not score a 1 because they're in year 7 and they're 5th graders. So these students came in with a little more proficiency than a 1.0 to a 1.9. The breakdown of that, we can get to you. We actually have some of those numbers, but they're off their path depending on where they started. So we have 100, next slide please, 133 of the 2,313 5th graders who are off their path. We still have 2,180 who are still on their path and haven't exceeded their years to be in program.
Okay, so then when you look at grades 7th, 8th, and 9th,
Yes.
those are the ones with the largest numbers.
Those are
who
the
have-
ones with the largest numbers, the highest percentages who are off their path.
And then, do you have this chart breakdown by demographics?
If you go to the next slide, we have it by ELP level. We do not have it by demographics. We know that the majority of those students will be Hispanic because they make up the lion's share of our students in program. However, I do want to make sure that we know that all racial categories, all racial groups are represented in our English language development program. While our Hispanic students are our most populous, we have representation and students receiving services from different racialized and ethnic backgrounds. So here it is by ELP level. What you're seeing here is as of January 8th, when we pulled this data, we wanted to see what English language proficiency level the current long terms per the chart you saw before were at. So we have 195 long terms who are still operating at an English proficiency level at a 1. It doesn't mean they've only ever been a 1. It means that today they are a 1. Sometimes what we see is students will take the assessment over the years and they'll get up to like a 3. And then as the language demands grow, as the grades get higher, they then start to slide backwards. So again, the more we can do to get our students out of program sooner, the better. The language development, the rigor of the language development that they have to demonstrate, the academic language they have to demonstrate on the test, on the assessment, only increases. There are different bands. So there's a kindergarten band test. There's a 1st and 2nd grade test. There's a 1st grade test. There's a 2 and 3 test. There's a 4 and 5 test. And then there's a 6 through 8 test and a 9 through 12 test. So again, as you grow, they're expected to use very sophisticated academic language across math, science, social studies, and English language arts in order to demonstrate language proficiency. So, these data are a key driver in making the determination for the need of our professional learning. Before we start that part of the discussion, I would like to open it up for conversation, for any questions or comments. I know that was a lot, and it would be beneficial to process in chunks, which is actually an ELD strategy.
Thank you.
So let's practice.
I will start on my right, Ms. Stewart.
Okay, I'm going to start at the end first.
Okay.
You just said that we have some sliding back as the test gets harder.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we know that kids that tested out early on haven't, in effect, slid back and they're not getting service? And how do we catch that? And how do we get these kids the service they need? Because by the time they're in 9th grade, we don't really know how they're performing, how they would even on this test.
So thanks for the question. We have to monitor legally for 2 years after students exit. We monitor our students. We call them REMLs. So we are monitoring and tracking them to ensure that they continue to show that they are moving in an upward trajectory. If they're not, then they can be brought back to the table to have a discussion about re-entry into the program.
I'm sorry, you might have had a slide on re-entries. Did you have one?
No, we haven't had many students needing to be re-entered into the program.
May I add to Ms. Stewart's question really quickly? So I guess part of the question and part of my question is, if we follow them for 2 years, where is the data on those students who have exited of how they are doing? And if you do have data on re-entry, how many they are? If they're very few, then. But I guess my question is, they left. How are they doing academically?
Yeah.
Where they are in the spectrum of the holistic system, right? And what are the supports that we are giving them? Because one thing is just to see numbers, but another thing is to actually follow the trajectory of the students. So do we have that data?
Yes, we've presented on our recently exited at just about every one of our content board meetings, so we can pull those together. What we see in MCPS is our students who exit thrive and start to surpass our native English speakers in their academic achievement. That is not a claim, it is a fact. And the state is also seeing that across the state about their recently exited students. So we can pull together the data we've presented on at previous academic meetings for our ELA and math to show by year 3, and remember again, they exit at a 4.5, which requires a lot of language command to be able to do that. They exit at a 4.5, demonstrating on all 4 modes of communication, reading, writing, speaking, listening, in a variety of content: language for math, language for science, language for social studies, language for English language arts. They have to do all of that to demonstrate a 4.5 or higher, and we monitor them for 2 years, but they're also still growing, to Ms. Stewart's point. And so in their growth, they still need sometimes language development support. So our content teachers need to know that. All of this is wrapped up in professional learning that needs to happen at the school level.
Ms. Stewart, additional question?
Yes, so now I'll go back more towards the beginning.
Okay.
From slide 7 or page 7, grade 12 is a way to leave after grade 12. So my question is, do we know the levels they are leaving at grade 12? Because they didn't, exit out before grade 12. Are some of those, would they have exited out on their tests, or are we graduating?
So we capture, if you look at my slide 12, if you look at your slide 12, we capture the exits for every grade level. So we do exit 12th graders, the traditional access for L's exit year.
At 32.
32 exits out of 917 test takers. So less than or equal to 5%. So we do have those exits, and we will, Ms. Rivera-Oven asked for the breakdown of the ELP levels of our 12th graders, and so we're going to work on that.
The numbers don't quite add up.
Yes,
between the two.
because remember, if you don't complete the battery of assessments, you don't get counted in the test takers.
Okay.
So we have a lot of high schoolers who don't like to engage in the assessment. I'll say that. So our schools do as much as they can to get our students across the finish line, because they know the implications for completing the assessment in terms of this could be your way to exit. Some students are like, I don't want to take the test, and it's just a battle that happens in schools. So the numbers are a complete battery of test takers.
And exit at grade 12, how many of these actually graduate with a high school diploma? Do we have that?
We can look into that out of the 32. Many of our EMLs graduate. We're in the 70 percentile. So we know they may still be in program and still graduate.
Sure.
Some students are in IB classes and still in the ELD program. So the test is it's very rigorous, and some students are able to demonstrate in enough time what needs the academic language needs in order to exit, and some are still in program, but still accessing grade level content, and being challenged in some rigorous courses. So it's not a single story.
Right. That makes total sense. My follow-up to that is if they graduate and they didn't, get past that 4.5, is there any kind of handoff so they can continue to master the language? Is there for continuing education after they graduate?
So I know that some of our schools, we were trying to work with one school in particular last year around a continuation program. We know that Montgomery College offers language development courses, so we were trying to partner and share that information with the high school. So it just depends on the path of the student. Some students are going to a four-year college. Some students are going to Montgomery College or a two-year college. Some students want to go into a trade. And so the high schools do a decent job of helping to usher them into the fields in order to attain enough language in order to navigate those scenarios.
Okay, and so my next question, I think you actually answered one of my questions throughout the presentation, so I'll skip that one.
Okay.
I'll move on to my colleagues, and maybe we can get a chance to come back.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you so much for all of this information and for everyone who helped to prepare it. I know it takes a lot to get this stuff together, so I really, really appreciate it. It helps to really paint the picture and tell the story. I do have just some requests for general information that don't need to be explained here, but if someone or perhaps whomever is best in the position can help me. What I'd like to see is kind of, for lack of a better word, like the rubric for the ELP levels. So when you're saying ELP 1, you mentioned words and utterances, but little comprehension. So then what is ELP 2? And that's just for my educational benefit. So I would appreciate that.
Okay.
And then also you mentioned that Maryland has its own policy about exiting at 4.5, but that and is it WIDA, W-E-T-A?
W-I-D-A, it doesn't stand for anything anymore, so don't, WIDA is WIDA. WIDA started off the names of 4 states.
Got it.
And then it grew and it grew, and now WIDA is just WIDA.
Okay. So in the future, if there's something where the data that we're seeing is based on a particular measurement or rubric or assessment, it would be helpful for me if that can just be noted somewhere so that I like to look things up and then I can go back and look later.
Okay.
So if there is a policy about when students are supposed to exit at a particular level versus the level 6, which it goes to, if you happen to have that policy or know what it is, I just would like to take a look at it myself. So if I can just get some information in that way also. I know that Ms. Rivera-Oven and I think Ms. Stewart as well also asked for the grade 12 ELP levels at MCPS graduation. So I would just like to reiterate that request. I'd also like to see data, the dual code. I'd like to see that by race and grade, as well as the long-term emerging English learner. I'd like to see that by race and grade also. And then in terms of questions, you mentioned that we were looking at kind of what I see as like a stall at ELP 3. right? Kids get to 3, and you think you said like they kind of hang out there for a while. And you mentioned that sometimes that's because at that age or grade, they have developed social language, right? Hanging out with friends, we're listening to music, watching TV. It's how a lot of folks I know learned English to begin with. And so sometimes they get overlooked. And so I'm wondering what, if anything, or what are we hoping for or looking for to try to do to prevent that from happening, to screen those students, even though it might seem that they can speak English well because they can get, middle school conversation works out okay?
Well, first it begins with awareness. And so, Ms. Rivera-Oven, do you have questions?
Oh, I have more questions, but I didn't know if you wanted to,
So I was just
if you
trying
would
to
rather
figure out
have
how
them
to
all,
answer
and
it.
then, that's fine, I can go either way.
No, I can answer this one. It starts with awareness. For a long time, our emergent multilingual learners have not been a focus. And so learning has been not really reaching our schools in the way that it needs to. And so just the mere fact of what English proficiency levels are, what does a 3 mean? These are the things that our schools, our school administrators, our school staff, our classroom content teachers need to know and need to know the characteristics of so that they can interrupt as quickly as possible. In the past, we have trained our English language development teachers kind of in isolation. And as you will see in the professional learning section, when we get to that part, you will see the efforts that these data have caused us to enact to make sure that the learning is a shared, the learning and the movement of our EMLs is a shared responsibility of all. But we cannot expect our classroom teachers, our building administrators to do this work and move this work if they don't have the ground level knowledge that needs to happen. Well, what I have 3s. What does that mean? What should I pay attention to? I have 10 students who are at a 4.3 and the exit is a 4.5. What targeted instruction can I provide to bump this kid? What domain is holding them back? How do I look at the data other than just an overall proficiency, other than a score? There's meaning behind all of it. And we have finally started to really focus on building the capacity of all students of this learning that needs to happen, of all of our staff, in order to be able to be on the same page. And when we speak about things, we are all understanding that. And hopefully, as you hear from some of the panel members, you will get to hear just what that looks like, sounds like, and what it's doing for work on the ground.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think it's great when they get the targeted instruction for EML, but they're also in science class or social studies.
Exactly.
Or I was at my child's school the other day and we were doing a little craft activity that tied to their studies that they were learning. That those children need help and support in those spaces too. So I do look forward to hearing from all of you. I have a couple more questions, and these two I think kind of go hand in hand. You were talking about growth, and we were looking at data measuring the progress, and it looks like our elementary school students are making significant progress, maybe a little less at the middle school and high school levels, but we kind of talked about that. And when we're looking at that growth, what is the measurement of that? How are we measuring whether someone has grown or not? Is that them hitting these targets on the path?
It is.
Okay, and then what happens if they don't hit a target? So I have a 3rd grader, and this path that says they're supposed to be at this point, and I'm going to try to change the language a little bit. It's not that the kids aren't on the path. It's that the path is not holding on to the kids, right? And so what do we do now? How do we make sure that the path reaches their arms out and gets those kids who didn't hit that target?
Yeah, so as a department, we have put together some tools to support our schools in even realizing if the student met the target or not. Again, this comes down to does the level of awareness that needs to be at our schools, does it exist? And have we provided schools the opportunity and the learning needed to know what to look for? And so we've created what we call ELD profiles, and I could definitely include a sample, an example of it. That includes language data, it includes content data, it includes some verbiage around what students at the English language proficiency level should be able to, can do at their current level and should be able to do. Like, you know, the concept of teaching up, and we pull that language from the rubrics that you want to see, the proficiency level descriptors. We pull that so that schools during their teachers, during their planning can say, oh, my student can do this. Here's where I need to aim for. And we identify clearly if the student met the target from the previous WIDA Access for ELS assessment or if they did not. We also indicate if the student is considered a long-term emergent multilingual learner. So as we continue to work to build the capacity of our schools, we are responding and providing tools to support our schools. Again, small department, massive job that needs to be done, and we have to be able to get in front of our schools and school leaders, our classroom teachers. Historically, our department has access to our ELD teachers. So we have to think of creative ways to partner across offices, the guidance they're giving, making sure there's learning happening there, even building up our own central office staff, their background knowledge so that they know what to listen for and look for. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we are plowing ahead in terms of making sure that that happens. But again, we are in some places at the basic level of awareness. What does an OPL, an overall proficiency level of a 3.8 mean? And what does that mean for the work we need to do on behalf of that student, those students, et cetera?
Okay, putting it into what does it mean on a practical level on the day-to-day?
Correct.
Yes, here's these words, but this is what it's going to look like in your classroom.
Yes.
Okay, and I have, one final question that I hope everyone will get used to me asking from up here is, what can we as parents and caregivers and families at home do? And how can we as a board and a school system support our parents and caregivers who may also not have particular levels of proficiency in English?
So parents, listen to me. All the millions of viewers out here. Contrary to popular belief, it is very vital and critical that you continue to foster and maintain your home language. Many of our families come to the United States and they think I have to drop my home language in order for my child to learn English. That is not, we understand why. Society makes you believe that that is the thing to do. However, a student who has strong connection to language, has strong connection to culture, has strong connection to family, and they are continuing to learn. And so it is important that you do not sever a tie at the sake of learning English, because no learning, no conversation, no background knowledge. Talk to your students about science in TWE. Talk to your students about social studies and what's happening in your home country in Tagalog. Do it because learning continues. Our parents, our families, we are the first source of knowledge and learning, and we can continue to be. Research shows the stronger you are academically and linguistically in your first language, the faster you learn English. So it is contrary to popular belief that when you come to the United States, you have to assimilate. I don't like that word. You have to assimilate to the space, and so that means English only. Research says that is not beneficial to our students. Keep a strong home language. If we have resources in that home language, or if you have the knowledge, continue to talk to your student and work with your student in first language.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Just a few just follow-ups because I'm kind of being conscious of time because I haven't been in this position before, so now I have to worry about time. I just love to ask the questions, but now I'm like, okay. So just, I would like us to go to page 15, which is the dual special education and ELD. So as you know, we have focused a lot on special education. That's, at least for me, has been one of the things that I've been targeting with para-educators, special para-educators, making sure that we have at least a function level to be able to respond to the needs of that population. So this is my concern. So we have over 6,000 students who are both ELD and IEP. My question is, and you referred to the staffing. So this year, we're putting more funding for EML teachers, the first time in many years, because we know that the ratio was like 1 to 41.
Yes.
Right? Yet, the growth of this population has been the fastest of any other group,
Correct.
and we have not addressed that. So with that in mind, I guess my question is, what is the focus between your office and the IEP office in ensuring that we have what it takes for these 6,000 plus young souls to have what they need to be able to succeed in our system? And although we haven't talked so much about staffing, this truly concerns me because if we want to have good outcomes, we need to have the staffing and the support for all the schools that are dealing with these populations. Otherwise, we're not going to see good outcomes. It's just as simple as that in my mind, right? So do we have a robust team of EML teachers who are also IEP in the different schools that have higher population? Because like with everything, you might have a school that you have higher population. I'll give you example cases where high school has, I believe, every group, you know, they have IEP, special education, huge EML, they have it all, right? So when we know we have, you know, schools like Gaithersburg High School and so on, do we look at the needs of staffing, and do we work, or do we have enough staffing? Do you have enough staffing? I just want us to be really honest and being able to be able to meet those measurements that we want to meet, because that's the only way in my head that I can see that, you know, otherwise we're going to be doing more with less, trying to achieve something that we want to achieve that's really unachievable because we don't have the resources that that they're needed, or that Montgomery Village Middle School doesn't have the resources that it's needed in order to be able to help all these populations. So I just want us to be honest. I don't want a political answer. I just want honesty. And the other thing that you and I had talked about is that we didn't even talk about pre-K. And I want the audience to understand, we didn't even touch pre-K. And there's a reason why we didn't talk about pre-K. And there's a reason why there's over 3,000 kindergartens who come to us without being vetted, even though we had probably had most of them in pre-K. But we don't do the vetting in pre-K, correct?
Correct.
So in a sense, we are already at a disadvantage with some of those children. And we saw in the data we were giving at the last board meeting with reading that our kindergartens, right, are the worst off when it comes to achieving reading. So, right? And it's like, so we're already playing catch up when we had the resources. If we could do the vetting in pre-K, all of those kids could already be starting. They won't have to be vetted on the first day of school in kindergarten because we already know where they are. And we can work with them in pre-K to get them to a higher ELP level instead of, not giving them any services when they start pre-K. And I know that this is a big blueprint issue and so on, but these are things I don't think we have thought about it before. So if we want to really give children a good start, one of the places that we need to really focus on is in making sure we're evaluating our pre-K young little people, right? starting them off with the services they need with ELP in pre-K. So guess what? When they come to kindergarten, they already have had some of that support, and then they're going to be less of a trajectory in our EML. So this is just speaking from a former EML student in MCPS, who I adore, Ms. Kavanaugh, and she's in heaven and she's looking down on me. I hope she's proud of me. But you know, as a former EML student, I know what it takes to be able to get to certain levels. I know the struggles of my mom that she had, you know, to keep up with the curriculum. And this is, of course, you know, back in the dinosaur time. But it is, right? It was a time when we didn't have these resources. So it kind of breaks my heart when I see that we have the resources, but yet we're not seeing, right, the needle that needs to move where it needs to be. So if you can answer about the staffing, that'd be great. And if you don't have it right now, but I think it would be, especially now that we're talking about budget, and then we're going to have the presentation of our guests.
Okay. So you started with duly coded, so I will just answer that really quickly. So we do work with the Office of Special Education. I do not have certification information about our ELD teachers who are at schools that have, for example, special education programs. That is something we can look into. And I'm not sure, because our students move a lot, and our staff move a lot. And so it would be a snapshot of who's on first this year in the schools with special education programs. So we can get that. It wouldn't necessarily be representative of what has happened in the past, because you know, teachers change school locations often as well.
Sorry,
Yes.
and then that also would not capture our students who are in general education, but perhaps with IEPs or 504s and potentially receiving EML services as well, right?
I mean,
Because that's a different subset of
that's
students.
a different subset of students. We know who our duly coded students are. We know where they are. We know where they are today. It might, you know, again, fluid environment, and so we can look into that. But we do work with the Office of Special Education. I am working really closely with the team working on the Rose Grant. Ms. Rivera Oven asked, what can we do to kind of interrupt it? That Rose Grant work is one key lever in terms of interruption. We need more transparent, and here we go again with professional learning, learning for our school teams who sit at the tables and make those determinations around the need for special education services. A student will most likely be an EML first before they become a student with a special education code, because on the very first day or their first experience in MCPS or in a school program, they fill out what you call the home language survey, which is what indicates to our teachers that they need to be screened for ELD services. So within the first 45 days of a student's experience who is new to MCPS, in the beginning of the school year, they will be identified as a potential emergent multilingual learner or not. And then we have, as the students grow in grade levels and there are academic concerns, then the talk of special education comes about and comes to the table. But what does that mean? When is it language? When is it a learning impact? This, again, is work that we need to do and work that we are doing based on the Rose Grant. And this summer, we actually had a book club for central office and some principals, because we felt it important that we all understand who are these students? What's the difference between a simultaneous bilingual and a sequential bilingual? Most of the students we have, a simultaneous bilingual, they've grown up learning English and their home language, and they're coming from a multilingual home, and they're operating in two or more linguistic frameworks, versus students who have only had exposure to their home language, and then they come and they have to learn English. That is a sequential bilingual. There's so many nuances to the work. And then when a principal, a school team is faced with sitting at the table and saying, this student is not making progress in their academics, does the school team, and the school team has a psychologist, so we worked with the psychology team as well this summer in the book club, just everybody getting on the same page, and using guidance that already exists. I do want to say there is guidance that already exists, but the feedback from the principals who participated in this book study was that when the rubber meets the road in my school, it's not as transparent. I don't know that we have the skills necessary to ensure that everyone's on the same page about if it's language or if it's a learning need. So there is work to be done. There's work that we are doing in collaboration, special education and DELMI, to ensure that we firm up the identification. It starts at identification, the identification rules, the identification procedures, and for the students who are in program, ensuring that schools have professional learning, they have adequate tools and resources to work with our students who are currently in program.
Right, and so I guess that's kind of my point, is so I know that the board has talked previously from watching board sessions about the need for general education staff to have professional development about special education, because increasingly we're seeing higher numbers of children with IEPs and 504s in general education, right? Not our specialized special education programs or schools or anything like that. And so now when we're looking at the dual coding, are we just capturing children that are in specialized or dedicated special education programs? Are we addressing those in different ways, right? Because now you have a general education teacher who perhaps they went through their training, they've been teaching, they're a great teacher, but they just never received training about special education, or they never received training about emerging multilingual learners, and now they have a student that has both.
Correct.
Within also then the other challenges that we have in our schools. Right?
Yes. So these numbers represent any students with an individualized education plan and any students with an English language development plan.
Irrespective of placement.
Yes, irrespective of if it's a specialized program or not. These are all the students who have both services.
Okay, but for professional development purposes,
Yes.
are you able then to see, okay, yes, this captures all of that, but I see that at, maybe it's by cluster even, right? In this cluster, we have this percentage of kids are in general education at Montgomery Village, perhaps. And so we really need to make sure we're giving them some extra resources that perhaps this other cluster or this other school doesn't need, because the numbers here reflected, you kind of get where I'm going?
Yes, I understand. And our Office of Special Education is the lead on the Rose Grant, but we're doing this work in collaboration. So everything you just described is exactly how they're operationalizing the work for the grant, looking at schools, looking at where there's a high service group, a high number of EMLs and a service group, having a partner school, almost like a lab situation where we're going to implement the strategies, provide the supports, do it in a targeted fashion, and then scale once everything is.
And I know we have done professional training for the first time. I think this is our second year that we offered it for general educators.
Yes.
About.
So when we get to next slide, please. And then just really quickly for the pre-K conversation, we have had the conversation, Ms. Rivera, Oven and I, when she asked about pre-K. We do not currently identify students in pre-K. By law, we have to identify students starting in kindergarten because that's the official start of their kindergarten year. But we used to screen students in kindergarten, provide them some services. We do not have adequate staffing to provide additional pre-K teachers in the pre-K setting. As Ms. Rivera-Oven quoted, our current staffing ratio, if we were to just do a straight ratio, right now our ELD teachers are facing about 41 to 1 ELD caseloads. And that's already pretty large, and that's with the staffing we have for K-12. So to provide services in that way to pre-K would make the ratios even bigger. I do want to say that our department has been in partnership with our pre-K office for the past few years, working with our pre-K teams and teachers to ensure that they, the content teachers, have learning, because when you think about a pre-K classroom, it's all about language development, right? Everything is language development. And so we have intentionally, once we had to move away from staffing in pre-K, we ensured that we did some learning with the pre-K office and team and teachers. And we just restarted that this year. We wrapped up a first round of sessions where all the pre-K teachers got explicit professional learning on language development. And so in absence of an actual ELD teacher being able to provide language development service, we are training the pre-K teachers, because they need to see themselves as language facilitators, because what is pre-K other than language everywhere? So that is, it is not staffing, and it is not ELD staffing, designated ELD staffing, and it is the best thing we can do given the staffing challenges that we have.
Thank you. Well, with that, I know we have some guests. They're eager to speak, so go
Yes,
ahead.
if we could go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to quickly just tee it up for our guests. Thank you. We have, in our first Board of Education meeting, we had, we introduced a theory of action from the board that at our first special populations meeting, that if the district focuses on building the capacity of our general education teachers and leaders to meet the needs of special populations, then the district's achievement will improve. And so while this meeting is about professional learning, next slide please, that our general education teachers need and leaders need, I'm just going to spend a quick few minutes just capturing and talking about the professional learning that we provide to our ELD teachers, because they play a big role in the strategy of training and supporting our content teachers. So if you start at the smallest circle, we ensure to invest some time with our first and second year ELD teacher cohorts. Onboarding our newest teachers who are English language development teachers in K-12 is critical because we are teaching our staff what it means to provide designated English language development instruction in MCPS. The learning we provide focuses on planning, instruction, and assessment for direct English language development instruction. It's important to note we saw our data not the best in our middle and high schools. The first and second year cohort structure was a structure that has been established for a number of years at the elementary level. And so in order to change outcomes, we made sure to start providing that level of professional learning to our middle and high school first and second year teachers. So that cohort model now exists for all of our K-12 English language development teachers. If we branch out to the next circle, we see that we have all of our English language development teachers, we have about 800, they're receiving, who are supporting the over 32,000 students, they're receiving professional learning at the district level on what it means to provide a functional language approach for academic settings. That's, working on listening, speaking, reading, and writing, representing and viewing, and the collaborative practices that need to happen with our content teachers. And then our final category captures how our English language development teachers, our content teachers, and our school leaders are directly supported in the implementation of their ELD programs at their schools. So we have provided school support. Our team works with our content teams, but we also work directly with our schools. We have 4 instructional specialists, really 3 at the elementary level, one coach, but the coach doubles and does some specialist duties. And they've touched about 60% of our elementary schools, like had direct school support contact this year. They work with ELD teachers, they work with core teams, they work with, help facilitate staff meetings. We have our 6 SLIFE coaches. SLIFE stands for our students with limited or interrupted formal education. So those are our students who come into the school system with an interruption starting in 3rd grade of 2 or more years of education. So we have 6 coaches who they spend their time in the schools and they support the students, they support the classroom teachers, they co-teach, they model, they plan with, they work directly with the students because those students have an even larger hurdle to overcome because they're trying to accelerate their learning to catch up to the grade level while still learning English and the current grade level work that they have to do. In grades 6 through 12, we have had over 516 hours of direct school support for implementation of English language development to our ELD teachers, our content teachers, and our leadership teams. And across our 2-way immersion schools, we've been able to offer in-person school support given to grade level teachers and core team members. We've offered professional learning through PLCs for our dual language coaches, our reading specialists, staff development teachers, math leaders, small but mighty team doing all the things in all the ways. Next slide, please. Those learning opportunities were able to happen with the operating budget funds that we have. But it's important to know that we also receive Title III funds. And so those funds are to supplement our English language development program. And so we have been able to offer our school and content leaders some direct learning from some of our the experts in the field. So we partnered with, for example, Dr. Ayanna Cooper, who's the author of And Justice for L's. We had a principal at just a solely administrator PLC, 2 of them, where it was a book chat of sorts where we would read and then we would come and meet with the author and unpack that learning, and they would reflect on how they could implement some of the practices that they learned in their schools. We also worked with Dr. De Oliveira, who again, we are placing a heavy emphasis on our secondary level only because of what the data show. And so Dr. Liu, that's what we call her, she is an authority on a functional language approach, which is one of the 4 big ideas of the WIDA framework. So the WIDA framework came out in 2020. We all know what we were doing in 2020. We were trying to survive. And so the framework came out at a time where folks were not really in a space to process the information. And so over the past few years, we have been really trying to elevate the language development framework that the WIDA consortium, there's a number of states and territories who follow the WIDA framework. And so functional language approach is one of the 4 big ideas. And Dr. Liu has been an authority in that area. And so we were able to get some training as a district level team, and we made sure to invite some of our content colleagues to do the learning alongside us. But she was also able to present to all of our secondary ELA and ELD, our resource teachers and content specialists. We see other Opportunities, I'm just going to be quick. So we see the Speak Agent. That was in response to, we know that our students, our ninth graders, now have to take the biology and NSL assessment, and those scores count as 20% of their second quarter grade. Knowing this, knowing we had EMLs in these courses, we partnered with our science and social studies teams to ensure we had a strategy in place. We're currently under a pilot of sorts with 8 of our high schools. The support ed work, this item has come through for board approval. We have worked specifically, we've used support ed for different clusters, but we have spent a lot of time, we're spending a lot of time with support ed in the Gaithersburg cluster specifically. So when Ms. Montoya talked about, well, if you're seeing patterns in one particular area, how do you divert the resources and attention? We use a lot of our Title III funds in that way. We aren't able to train all the teachers from our Title III funds. It is not an expansive pot of funds, but we try to offer varying opportunities for content and ELD teachers, and we try to divert the resources to pockets and areas where we're seeing there needs to be like some specialized targeted support. Support ed is one of those. And then lastly, for our teachers with limited or interrupted formal education, that is a big and growing number of our students. At the secondary level, we have over 300 students that are across our 22 sites that are former METs. We now use the national term of SLIFE. And there's a lot of work that has to be done. So having professional learning communities at the elementary level, partnering with our math and ELA teams to bring that learning to classroom teachers of what does it mean to instruct and a SLIFE, to our secondary partnerships in terms of training our teachers as we as a district level make decisions about refining the content resources being used and the people who are in charge of delivering the math and ELA instruction to our SLIFE. These partnerships have been had. Next slide, please. And so for the past 2 years, we have taken a very targeted support, not as aggressive as we would like to, because funding is what it boils down to. So in 2023, we had enough funds to be able to train our elementary schools, not just the ELD teachers, because remember, again, that's really who we have access to, but we were able to train our instructional leadership teams at the elementary level. That includes all the team leaders, the administrators, your reading specialist, your math lead, if you have one, on what it means to provide sound language instruction. We spent time on the WIDA framework, ensuring they understand what language development looks like and what that means for instruction happening at the grade level. We were able to do the similar approach this past summer, for our secondary instructional leadership teams. So our secondary instructional leadership teams, including our content specialists, team leaders, administrators, counselors, our EFRs, our ESRs. The middle and high school teams are much larger, fewer schools, but much larger teams. We were able to have enough funding to be able to train the content teachers in addition to the ELD teachers, the English language development teachers. And this approach was really to address the fact that everyone has to share the responsibility of the academic achievement and linguistic achievement of our emergent multilingual learners. As a district, this past October, we spent a good portion of our district-wide professional learning day dedicated to all staff members. All staff members had to participate in the English language development instruction that they was offered, which focused on the key language uses and language objectives. So all schools had to participate in that. They had options for other paths to build their own repertoire in areas that they were interested in, but everyone had to, it was mandated that they participated in the language development instruction. And we did that work in partnership with the district-wide professional team. And then, of course, we have our school level implementation, our school level supports, lots of partnerships across our K-12 district level teams, and our school support. So that's enough from me. We're going to transition. One of the first two panel members that we have is they're going to be Miss Jennifer Rushin. She's going to be able to share from a central office perspective about the learning needed in order for her team and the department to be able to operationalize their work. Immediately following her, we'll have Miss Alana Carr, principal of Seven Locks Elementary School, who will give you the perspective from an administrator's lens about learning that administrators need and the impact of professional learning.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jennifer Rushin, and I am the Pre-K through 12 Physical Education Instructional Specialist. I am here representing my team, as well as the broader work of central office curriculum teams. Today, I will share how we've been supporting our emerging multilingual learners, EMLs, in physical education, the challenges we have faced, and the impact of our collaborative efforts to ensure that every student receives the best education possible. Our commitment to supporting emerging multilingual learners began in 2021 with a comprehensive curriculum update. After the revision of the National Physical Education Standards, the Maryland State Department of Education updated its framework. This was then adopted by the MCPS Board of Education. Over the past 3 years, our team has worked with students, teachers, and central services staff, including the DELMI team, to develop an inclusive pre-K through 12 physical education curriculum. We aligned our work with the revised national standards, which define the knowledge and skills necessary for students to develop physical literacy. The development process has consistently focused on equity, accessibility, and diversity, ensuring it meets the needs of all students. This foundation set the stage for creating an extensive collection of instructional resources and materials designed to equip and empower our educators to deliver high-quality instruction that positively impacts the health and well-being of every student. As we developed the curriculum, we used MCPS system data to guide our work, particularly the growing number of EMLs. This data helped inform our development with EML learners in mind, allowing us to expand on existing strategies already embedded in the curriculum resources. Our initial step was to examine the strategies used in our two-way immersion, TWI, schools, focusing on how these strategies engage students, scaffold instruction, build relationships, and make learning more enjoyable. We quickly recognized the success of our TWI teachers and understood that what we were seeing was more than just a trend, it was a movement. From there, we began embedding EML support strategies into the elementary PE curriculum, giving teachers the tools they needed to support EML students. Importantly, we also understood that what works for EML students often benefits all students by addressing diverse learning styles. Examples of the resources we created through collaborative efforts with our TWI, schools, and the DELMI team are shown on the slide. In the summer of 2023, the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Programs Elementary PE team hosted a Tier 1 training for over 150 elementary physical education teachers to introduce the new curriculum and the updated resources. This session included a component focused on supporting EML students, where each teacher participated in a 1-hour workshop on effective instructional practices, including the use of content and language objectives in alignment with grade level outcomes. The positive feedback we received confirmed that we were on the right track and motivated us to expand and strengthen our resources further. Building on this success, we moved to the next phase, which was resource development, creating documents that align grade level outcomes with content and language objectives, dual language word walls, visuals, animated graphics, and sample learning activities for each unit. We also collaborated with TWI teachers and coaches to develop language acquisition resource packs to make learning more accessible for all students. These resources will be implemented with curriculum writers this year and shared with all elementary PE teachers in 2026. Throughout this process, we've worked closely with the TWI and Delmy offices to ensure that our resources align with their vision and expertise. While we are a small team, one content specialist for physical education, district-wide, we are determined to make a lasting impact. One of the major challenges we have faced is finding the time to collaborate with content experts and secure the funding necessary to create resources and provide training. A pivotal moment for me came last summer when I chose to attend a training led by the Delmy team on functional language approach. This session, open to all central office content teams, was an invaluable opportunity to deepen my understanding of language development. The insights I gained not only enhanced my ability to support our teachers, but also played a key role in advancing the Elementary Physical Education EML project. The knowledge gained from this training helped me see the broader scope of language learning across pre-K through 12. It was at this Delmy training that I truly understood the importance of cross-office collaboration and large-scale professional learning. As elementary school specialists, our art, music, and PE teachers have the unique opportunity to work with every student in the building for multiple years, which makes it essential to offer professional learning opportunities that connect system-wide initiatives to their content areas. This experience became a catalyst for my commitment to fostering cross-office collaboration and leveraging expertise to drive the success of our district's initiatives, ensuring that learning is accessible, equitable, and engaging for all students, and that our teachers have the knowledge and tools needed to effectively support diverse learners and create inclusive, high-quality learning environments. This work would not have been possible without the passion, time, and effort of the dedicated MCPS staff who have helped shape our progress. The cross-office collaboration between physical education curriculum writers and Delmy has been invaluable. We look forward to even more opportunities to collaborate with other central office teams. Together, we can ensure that professional learning remains consistent and impactful across all content areas. The impact of our work is already visible in the classrooms. Teachers are gaining the tools they need to support EML students more effectively, and our students are benefiting from a more inclusive and accessible learning experience. We're seeing increased engagement, comfort, confidence in PE, and a deeper connection to content objectives and academic language development. We're excited about our progress and look forward to continuing this journey. Our focus will remain on supporting our emerging multilingual learners in grades pre-K through 12. We know that supporting our fastest growing student population will ultimately benefit all students. The evidence shows that aligning content and language objectives to these language acquisition strategies leads to greater success for everyone. Your continued commitment to funding professional learning, supporting central services staff, and advancing curriculum development will enable us to create a brighter future for every student in MCPS. Thank you again to the members of the Board of Education for your time, attention, and support.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon, Board of Education members and colleagues. As the principal of Seven Locks Elementary School, I am committed to realizing our vision of empowering all students to become creative, independent thinkers and change agents. Our EMLs are an area of focus for us. With 373 students and 12% of those students in special populations, resources are limited, especially for services like English language development, ELD. While we have a very skilled part-time ELD teacher, all stakeholders must be equipped to support them. In the summer of 2023, our leadership team, including administration, attended professional learning to better understand how we could extend our reach for EMLs and in turn all students. During Delmi's training, we were asked questions that sparked thinking. A couple of those questions included, how do you ensure that ELD teachers' learning is shared with other stakeholders? When do you meet with ELD teachers to debrief their learning? And what patterns exist in our school data, and how do they drive our approach to facilitating learning and planning? These sessions made me reflect on my own leadership moves in coaching and supervising language-facing instruction and directly connected me with our Delmi instructional specialist. In collaboration with our specialist and leadership team, takeaways from the summer training were analyzed. Next slide. After reviewing school-wide data, it was clear that though our EML students formally required a spotlight on language-rich instruction, all students could benefit. With a lens on inclusion, we next looked at the operations and programming implications. Though this is an example of my story and that of our 7 Locks team, I have no doubt other administrators have similar ones. Through ongoing collaboration with the Delmi office, my understanding of how to lead for language instruction and programming was refined. As a result, I became better equipped to steer simple yet valuable shifts for all students. These included, for example, creating an electronic archive of language learning strategies through a weekly email. Our ELD teachers shared scaffolds for comprehensible input and output, modeling through mentor texts, and much more. I put an example actually on the slide, and I just had a teacher the other day say she constantly looks at that archive during planning to put those pieces within their planning document and then into instruction. Developing a schedule, prioritizing varied content areas and co-teaching models, and primarily carrying those out within the general education classroom. Developing skill-based groupings so EML and non-EML students had and continue to have opportunities for explicit vocabulary instruction, front-loading, and book previews. And that relates to that dual coding that we've talked about today. Implementing data chats after assessment windows to guide schedules and instructional foci accordingly, and coordinating an access testing plan that causes minimal impact on student instruction and services. These practices boosted achievement for both students and staff. For instance, in the Maryland State Report Card, our EML students grew by almost 30% for mathematics between fiscal year 23 and 24. While 7 Locks Elementary School is making significant strides, we continue to face challenges that we have yet to fully resolve. One of these is welcoming newcomers and meeting their unique needs. Although we utilize available resources, such as life coaches for grades 3 to 5 and language-facing apps, not all newcomers can access these tools, as we've talked a bit about today. Our collaboration with the Delmi office has helped, but we recognize that more resources are needed to support all students effectively. Additionally, while we've progressed in developing staff capacity for language-facing instruction, balancing this with the demands of the new curriculum and minimal ELD staffing remains challenging. As we move forward, we remain committed to providing a resource-rich experience for every student, ensuring all have the tools they need to succeed and thrive. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share today.
Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Members of the Board of Education, my name is Marisela Tovar. I am a proud 5th grade teacher at Rolling Terrace Elementary School in Tacoma Park. Next slide, yes. Rolling Terrace is one of 6 elementary schools that provides two-way Spanish immersion education to all our students. I currently teach in Spanish, but have experience in teaching in English as well. Additionally, 62% of our students are receiving English language development services. This is a reflection of the broader trend of an increase of EML students across the district. As an educator in a TWI school, I have the privilege of engaging in many professional development opportunities. These have included both required summer training and additional school-based sessions. Notable among these has been the workshops focused on transitioning my literacy instruction from a monolingual to a multilingual approach and effective language acquisition strategies. I have also participated in training on developing student learning objectives that are aligned with language domains. MCPS has supported this professional growth by offering relevant training at the district-wide session held in October. This session focused on writing language objectives that integrate the language domains to learning targets. As a TWI school, this has been the priority since the program's implementation. School-based training has been given with support from language and content coaches, as well as ELD teachers in the building. I recognize that one of the most valuable resources I have when teaching EML students is collaboration with my team. While professional learning provides an understanding of needs, trends, and best practices relevant to my instruction, the most significant impact has come from working alongside my team, coaches, and especially our ELD teachers. Our participation in long-range planning, each marking period, has been most beneficial. During these sessions, we analyze standards across content areas, develop language objectives, decide on instruction and assessment that prioritize language development that we will do together. This collective approach improves our instruction. I've observed success for our efforts. First and foremost, the identity of our school and instructional approach are deeply rooted in language. We take pride in recognizing that all our students are language learners. This certainty shapes many of our decisions, especially in terms of what is most effective for our EML students. Our students consistently practice acquiring language through the 4 language domains. The integration of content and language has led to greater student engagement, skill development, and overall positive classroom experience. Focusing on oracy within our curriculum has led to rich discussions, meaningful exploration. Our intentional focus on language in Spanish enhances our Spanish-speaking EML's language skills in English, creating interconnected linguistic development. There is nothing more impactful than seeing my students learn, explain, and participate in 2 languages. With this work, we face challenges. One of the biggest challenges I have encountered in the nuanced world of the two-way immersion has been the lack of cohesiveness across content departments at the district level. We often receive guidance from multiple departments, and decisions are not always made with EML learners as a primary consideration. As a result, we wait for alignment across departments, which adds complexity to an already demanding workload. As a TWI school, we are fortunate in having a TWI instructional specialist who attend our planning meetings, provide training, and has been available for support. Her efforts have bridged communication and clarity and best practices between our school and the district level. Ultimately, EML students must be the central focus in decision-making, guidance, and equity within our district. I have seen and greatly benefited from purposeful collaboration among all stakeholders at my school level. The integration of language learning enriches all content areas and, most importantly, showcases the potential, the brilliance, and contributions of EML students and all learners. Thank you, board, for your time and attention.
Okay, now we'll have our team from Montgomery Village Middle School.
Hi, good morning. Next slide, please. So Again, board members, my name is Roy Liebert. I am the principal of Montgomery Village Middle School, which sits straddling both Gaithersburg and Germantown. The data that you see on the screen right now is pretty self-explanatory. The data that you don't see there is that if you add up all of our most of our Hispanic students, about a third of our African American students, and all of our Asian students, we have over 72% of our students who are ever ESOL, meaning they have at one point received support. The other contextual piece that I feel is important, we are also a community school, which allows us to make deeper connections with our Spanish-speaking community by offering adult language learning classes, markets, and monthly coffees for families where we explain things like the impact of the WIDA access test so that they can help support at home. It's been very encouraging to listen to the questions from the board members and hear comments from my colleagues. We take professional development very seriously at Montgomery Village. EML students have always been the center of our focus, in addition to students receiving special education services. And many of the individual on-the-ground conversations with families is about, which came first, the chicken or the egg, and then we make a decision about deploying supports and families make choices. We have two differentiated pathways within our building. One for experienced teachers that is grounded in planning to standard, using effective assessment and using data to drive instruction. The other is for novice teachers. But most importantly, when we think about professional development and we think about one of the questions or comments from board member Rivera Oven earlier about resources and needs and support, and most importantly, staffing, Montgomery Village being a Title I school, I should be using that funding for something extra and spicy. And I am not saying what I'm about to say, this person is not spicy, but unlike many of my colleagues at the secondary level, I use the totality of my staffing through Title I to have an ELD content specialist. Many of my secondary colleagues are forced to either assign the supervision of the EML department to either an English content specialist or RC, depending on the level, a social studies, PE, or even world languages. And that deployment of resources does not allow for some of the amazing things that we have happening at the Village to occur. When it comes to professional development and it comes to the ownership of all of our students, you'll hear some of the nuts and bolts about how we make sure that students don't backslide, if you will, once exiting, because we do have exits. You will hear about how we celebrate and make a big deal out of vertical articulation. You will hear about those meetings I mentioned. But most importantly, when we're talking about the context of professional development and how it, from a macro level, and how it trickles down to the student's experience, without the ownership and commitment, creativity, and dedication of the adults in the building, that macro learning could very quickly become secondary. And so we've made some decisions. We're blessed to have an extremely effective and committed staff development teacher who is willing to support in all things. I have a multitude of instructional supports from central office that are primarily focused on planning. No matter what we're talking about, folks, we are talking about planning and the quality of that conversation. When the connection to resources is we do not have an ELD instructional specialist that we can tap into every single day and have a PLC spend some time with. The most important thing that I would like to just, again, hand off to these two amazing people, without the commitment of the people in the building, hearing the messaging from leaders, and then the monitoring of it, I would not have a science content specialist up here being able to present about the work that impacts our language learners in classrooms. The Village is blessed, but we are in need of more. I turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you. My name is Susan Bickel, and I am the content specialist for English language development. And Roy did hire me in 2021 to come on and be able to have a more focus on our EMLs at Montgomery Village Middle School. Next slide, please. I think this next slide is going to answer a couple questions that you all had during the presentation earlier, which is about where these kids are in terms of staying on track for language learning. And one of the shifts that we've started to make at Montgomery Village is that we cannot refer to our students as EMLs. We have to get down into the nitty-gritty data of when those students came into our program, how long they have been on the program, and whether they are meeting the targeted growth expectations that we have for them. And what we've really been trying to do for the past 2 years is shift the expectations of our teachers. Because what we found is that if you look at that slide up there, you will see that a majority of our students are in their 6th, 7th, or 8th year of language instruction. Our numbers have also grown over the year. When I first came in, we had 209 EMLs. This year we have 311. So we are growing over the past 3 years by about 30%. So when we made this shift and we were able to start pulling out this data because we looked at the Maryland report card and those growth expectations that you saw earlier, we realized that a lot of our teachers did not realize where our students were along that path of their language learning. They looked at EMLs in terms of what level were they testing at. Were they one of those long-term students who was a level 1? Our teachers didn't know. This data, though, now is in Performance Matters. We've shown our teachers how to pull it out. And we've had comments from teachers who've said things like, really? Marco's been here for 6 years and he's only testing at a level 3? Oh, my expectation was not right. So one of our biggest steps has been shifting the way that we have teachers look at student data so that they know the year of the students and where those expectations are and when they should be testing at a 4.5 to meet those expectations and to exit our program. That has really helped our teachers have more accurate expectations for our students, not only where their performance should be, but what should be the level of student performance in the classroom. What do teachers need to be addressing to move our students along? Also, being responsive to our staff in an effort to deepen their capacity, we made some intentional decisions over this past year to provide targeted instruction around language development and our students' trajectories. That's what Stephanie, who is our science content specialist, is going to be able to talk to you about, how that looks like big picture and then small picture in her department.
Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So this summer, I participated along with our ILT in the functional language approach training. And before I kind of tell you that impact, I think we need to speak to some of the unique structures that under Roy's leadership, we've really created at MV. First thing is we have started off this year with all of our monthly staff meetings being focused around the functional language approach. So they are small little nuggets that are co-facilitated both by our ELD and ELA content specialist, but also by other content specialists. So really seeing the connection to other contents. Every month we facilitate data chats with our departments that can be data in a lot of different ways, and you'll kind of hear one of the ways I did that. CSs also support cohort planning each week. So our teachers are expected to be planning each day that they don't have a meeting, but content specialists come in and support them 1 day a week to really focus that planning. Recently, we also have had instructional specialists from central office that have also come and started to target some of our cohorts in terms of that planning. We also operate our professional learning cycle on a 4-week cycle. So during the first week, our learning really starts with the leaders. Where do we want this to go? We as leaders learn that first. The leaders take it out to their departments or their teams, but then we're also monitoring that progress. And at the end of that cycle, we're coming back and sharing that data to our leadership team and really seeing where we need to go next. So that's really guided how we're doing things at the Village and kind of where I went with my department. So after completing the functional leadership approach training this summer, I really left with 2 guiding thoughts. The functional language approach supports our EML students, but it supports all students as academic language learners. All of the students in our classrooms are learners of English in an academic environment, whether they come with a second language or not. We're all responsible for the success of those students, so the functional language approach can and should be infused to all our contents. So we really started with our staff meeting at the beginning of the year. We took the summer learning experience that we had as an ILT, and we used that training in pieces to introduce the new approach to all of our staff. I was excited to be part of this work starting in the summer. I saw this connection to what I'm experiencing in my classroom and also the possible impact. It also spoke to a lot of the challenges that I experience in my content that I've had for many years, both as a teacher and as a leader. During pre-service, several of our CS leaders presented data to all staff to meet the first objective of our summer learning, align their role as a collaborator to the ELD program in order to integrate content and language instruction in all subject areas. They learned who our kids are and why it's so important that we're all doing this work together. In our September staff meeting, we really introduced the functional language approach to our entire staff. Teachers learned about the key language uses prior to the October Professional Learning Day, and were tasked to examine their own content for those key language uses. We also went deeper in October. We reviewed student performance on the WIDA Access for ELL assessment, but focused on the writing domain. Frequently, we look at just that ELP level, and it doesn't tell us the whole story of where the strengths and areas of work are until we drill down to those different domains. So we noticed that our kids were stuck at a 3.0, exactly what the data is showing us, and then asked teachers to review the language proficiency rubric and deepen our understanding of how to score those samples, kind of what our expectations are. So after that macro learning as a staff, I decided to focus my work in the department on supporting writing in science, to really drill down to one of those domains. We've continued to see the gap between where students are and where they're expected to be in their science writing. And this is especially important as we consider the fact that our students have to take the Maryland Integrated Science Assessment, the MESA, to demonstrate mastery of science standards, along with all of the other assessments that they're taking. We started with a data chat during the month of October. We examined the access data by cohort year for our current students. During the discussion, we were impacted most by the writing demands of our EML students on the access test and the lack of alignment to our classroom expectations. We realized we are over-scaffolding and over-supporting our students. This keeps them stuck at their current level and does not push them to work more independently. Those scaffolds, as much as we want to give them in the classroom, they're not available in any of these other district assessments when they're meant to demonstrate their learning. Our students are relying on those supports too much. We connected this to the importance of our work with the key language uses of the functional language approach. We were providing the academic language to our students rather than teaching our students how to use their own academic language based on the purpose of their writing. My teachers left these experiences with a deeper understanding of the long-term needs, but also the capabilities of our students. Our role is not just to support our students through the content, but to see them as language learners of science. Teachers increase their expectations for students' writing and increase the accountability of their students. They also left with the understanding that they are an important part of our students' success as language learners. This shift in mindset has made them more open and receptive to professional learning in all venues of our school. After the positive impact in my department, we decided to bring this whole experience to the staff during the district-wide Professional Learning Day in October. So we kind of did that macro learning that was provided to us, but then we also shared this with every department at that micro learning. This led to more discussions during cohort planning about the differentiation and language support that we provided to our students. But we've also had a lot of barriers and challenges to continue this work. Our staff saw the importance and potential impact of planning with a language focus for our students. Teachers know this is a challenge and are hungry for strategies and skills to support their students. The big question that I took away from the summer training was, and this was that real aha moment for me, how do we model and make language visible for students without decreasing the rigor and expectations? I need more support to help my teachers answer that question because we're not there yet. My department needs models for embedded language-focused instruction in their content. We're seeing this with the incorporation of packed reading lessons in our content that are provided to us, where we have specific academic vocabulary and a reading strategy included. However, this is not as frequent enough yet to have a measurable impact on our students. My department also needs continued support and feedback in planning for language-focused instruction. What is the vocabulary that will have the most impact on the students this week? What are the writing demands for the standard that we're assessing? What kind of organization or sentence structure does this science task require? Those are all questions that we should be looking at in planning, but we also need feedback on to know we're moving in the right direction. We really need staffing to make this work. We would benefit greatly from ELD experience and expertise coming to our planning and providing models and feedback for us. We would embrace a co-teaching model that would allow us to meet a wider array of needs in our science classrooms. We have found that we can provide that macro learning, that large group initial professional learning for our teams, but it's the micro learning and deeper application at the level of planning and weekly language instruction in our classroom that's a barrier for us. The next step will be to ensure that language instruction is implemented with fidelity in the classroom with our students. I can't yet speak to the impact of this work in connection to achievement data, but I have seen a shift in my department's alignment in understanding and focus for instruction, keeping that language development in mind. I'm encouraged by the work we started and where we can go. My teachers see this direct connection with their content and their students and language. However, time for planning and ongoing support continue to be a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want us to be sense the time, and I want to leave some room for our other group. So just keep that in mind, and because we also want to have some discussion about Montgomery Village. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. So thank you, Montgomery Village Middle School, for talking about the operationalizing of professional learning. Now we're going to have our high school, Magruder High School, talk about the collaboration needed in order to implement professional learning.
That's an important part.
All right, good afternoon, board members and MCPS community. I'm Miss Megan Campbell. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the staff development teacher at Magruder High School. And so really what it comes down to is, in all transparency, Magruder staff really hasn't received a independent, high quality, in-house professional development structure prior to probably school year 2022. That's when I came in, and just recently we really kind of driven our focus to EML students. So as the role of staff development, for me, professional learning is a deliberate and collaborative process designed to empower our teachers, especially those teachers that are either new to our profession or even new to our Magruder community. The professional learning given provides a clear framework for continuous growth and capacity through targeted, meaningful, and data-driven learning experiences by focusing and coaching on cultural responsive teaching, innovative pedagogical strategies such as effective scaffolding, PAC strategies, language routines, and effective data uses, especially the data we get from Performance Matters dealing with EML. Next slide, please. I aim to enhance instructional practices and ultimately improve student outcomes is what I would like to do as staff development. The beauty about being staff development is I can kind of front load my own capacity about EMLs through the collaboration, high effective, high quality collaboration with my ELD RT, but also leveraging the insights gained from the DELMI instructional professional learning that they provided, the MCPS leader learning within collaboration to DELMI. That work, as an SDT, have developed an actionable adult learning progression for the staff at Magruder for this past school year, so school year 24-25. The progression is designed to address the diverse needs of our educators by incorporating evidence-based strategies, again, going back to the effective scaffolding, PAC strategies, in order to continue to foster cultural responsive practices and promoting high impact teaching. With this instructional effectiveness and ultimately support the success of all students, especially our special populations. The impact of the current Magruder professional development sessions is becoming increasingly evident across the school. We are beginning to see a shared sense of responsibility amongst the staff, fostering a collaborative environment dedicated to deepen their understandings of EML, support strategies, and then this growing awareness is leading to more consistent and effective implementation of these strategies, ultimately enhancing our instructional practices and supporting all students in achieving their full potential, and not only our special population students, but all students. I will conclude that say if the staff development role is used appropriately and adequately, this position could actually highly be effective in collaboration with DELMI and the ELD RT to create high quality, cohesive professional learning for all general educators, including physical education, health, and the arts, with a focus on special populations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Adrienne Helmick, and this is my third year serving in the English Language Development Program at Magruder High School, with this being my second year as the ELD resource teacher. In addition to the work with Ms. Campbell as she shared, I've been leveraging the knowledge and skills I've gained through the trainings and professional development opportunities provided by the Department of English Learners and Multilingual Education to support my work with the department heads and teachers in a continued effort to build staff capacity to effectively teach EMLs. This year, I have focused on three main areas to build teacher capacity and promote shared responsibility for the success of EMLs, which are planning and teaching with an equity lens, ensuring all students can engage with the curriculum, delivering rigorous grade-level instruction and using scaffolding when appropriate so that all students can access the curriculum, and developing expertise in providing targeted support and incorporating language learning strategies for EMLs. To achieve these goals, I began this school year by leading a professional development session for our instructional leadership team, which focused on best practices and effective strategies for co-planning and co-teaching for ELD and content area teacher teams, as well as co-leading a pre-service professional development session for all teachers on effective approaches to teaching EMLs. This included providing concrete examples and strategies that can be implemented across all content areas. Throughout the school year, I've continued to collaborate with department heads, co-teaching pairs, and teacher professional learning communities in the science, social studies, English, and math departments. Together, we have focused on integrating scaffolding techniques to ensure that all students can access the curriculum, as well as incorporating language development into everyday content area instruction. Additionally, I've been providing one-on-one coaching and targeted feedback to both ELD and content area teachers, helping them utilize student data and implement instructional strategies that meet the diverse needs of our EMLs. In terms of these collaborative efforts to support the EMLs, we are already beginning to see the impacts. For example, in the professional learning communities, we're seeing teachers work together to combine their expertise in language development and expertise in content knowledge to more effectively align academic and language instruction. We are also seeing teachers in their professional learning communities conducting monthly data analyses on EML progress and using the data to inform their instruction. And some teachers have included specific goals for EMLs in their student learning objectives, focusing on language development and academic needs. Also, during our teacher-led professional development day, ELD and content area teachers came together to share best practices for teaching EMLs. Last, teachers are actively reaching out to me and other ELD teachers for collaboration and feedback on how they can best support the EMLs in their classrooms. These efforts are beginning to show a growing sense of shared responsibility for the academic and language growth of EMLs. It is essential that we continue this work of professional development and collaboration to ensure we are meeting the needs of EMLs and all students. Thank you for your time and support.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give one question to each. I'm going to start with Ms. Montoya.
Thank you. And I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you again all for being here and for all of the work that you're doing in your schools. I know it is a lot. As I mentioned, I've been at Rolling Terrace. I'm very, very familiar with the population. And I just also wanted to note, and I guess just request that I know that many of our schools that are here today and many of our schools in our system not only have significant EML or special education students, but also FARMS populations. And often some of our students are maybe in all three categories. So when you saw me writing here, it's because I was looking up your FARMS data from your schools. And I know that many of you here, sometimes your FARMS rates are even higher than your EML and your special education rates. So I just want to acknowledge the real work that you're in there doing and say thank you. And also I want to acknowledge and thank you for including in your racial and ethnic breakdown all groups. Oftentimes in our school systems and in other spaces, when there is not a particular percentage of a certain group, they are left out. And as a group of population who is often left out myself, I appreciate you including your American Indian students and other students that often may fall below the 5%. Thank you.
Thank you. Stuart.
Thank you so much for sharing the experience in your schools and how you are using that growth mindset to do better. I think that's kind of my theme this year, growth mindset, which my kids have taught me about, actually. I wanted to kind of complete the circle here. So we got the data on page 10 of the slide, the overall student progress report over the last 3 years. And the trajectory is not what we want to see. It is going down. But the stories I'm hearing today from your schools, there's bright spots, right? And I did hear one of them about the math scores going up by 30%. And I believe that was, can you remind me which school?
Seven Locks.
Seven Locks, yes. And so we can link, the resources, the change, and what we are doing with our kids every day to some progress in a different direction. And so I know that it's really hard, especially in today's climate, to directly link a particular action to a particular outcome. But I do think it is worth digging into some of these new ways of doing business in our schools to results. And so we have different resources at different schools. So if we could try to start doing that and maybe seeing a presentation on particular schools' progress, that would be great.
Thank you. So for me, because of time, and we can circle back with some of you, first of all, thank you, because you said you're like one person for the whole system. Can we just remind people there's 211 schools, okay? So it all goes back to resources and staffing for me. And I think for some of my colleagues up here, for all of us, it's the staffing is vital. With a population that has had the largest growth in our school system. So thank you for what you do, for bringing that to our attention. But imagine that you guys need so much help. And yeah, you have a very small ELD population. So then when we move on to Rolling Terrace, you guys have over 400 kids in EML. And then 11% in special education, which I don't know which of those are crossover. 11% in that group, how many are both EML and special education? So that might even be higher. But with that, one of the things that really draw me is the special, is the ELD content specialist that Montgomery Village made a very deliberate decision to actually have understaff, right? Which is not the case across the board. So for me is looking at this in a different way of, do we really want to lift the children that are on an email classes? Because what your content specialty does is really breaks it down. And then it's all about expectations for those different groups. So when our expectations change on our children, we start seeing results. So I don't know if Rolling Terrace has an ELD content specialist, but I'll be curious to know how many ELD teachers you guys have. What is the ratio for those 400 students, right? How is central office, how is, supporting the schools with high needs, with the high farms needs, and so on, right? All those are part of the ingredient of the pot that we need to look at, not just the numbers, but the other factors that affect the learning for our children, and making sure that we are addressing all those factors at the same time. So for me, it's, hopefully you're going to tell me, oh, we have 3 yielded, I don't know. But that is a major, right? That is a major point, I think. And the same thing for Magruder High School, right? You guys are doing everything you can, but what can you do if you actually have, so I think we said, I heard that we have some coaches that the EML department has, right? It's a mighty team. I don't know how many are in that mighty team?
Okay, so I want to clarify. We have 2 ELD coaches, 2. They focus on the additional targeted school improvement schools. So they are focused, they have a laser focus on those schools who have been identified as ATSI. We have 7 schools identified for not meeting the measure, and so now they're on an extra watch list. And so our secondary coach focuses her work on with those 6 schools. We have an elementary coach as well. She has 1 school, and so we use her to support to take on some of the other elementary schools because there are over 130 elementary schools for 3 instructional specialists. So we use the staffing in ways to support, but if we only use the 3 specialists the way we had, they would have over 40 schools. So we have 2 coaches. When I mentioned the 6 coaches, they were specifically at the elementary level for our students with limited or interrupted formal education. So we have close to 50 students who at the elementary level between grades 3 and 5 that are SLIFE. In the secondary level, we have over 300. So the SLIFE coaches work at the elementary level to try to catch those students up, because you see what the data says. We try to give them as a heavy dosage of support before they move on to middle school so that they have higher chances of catching up from that interrupted education and, growing in their language and content.
But I guess my point again would be, as much as, you guys, you don't have the resources, period, to be able to make the impact that we need to make the impact in the district when it comes to EML. And I'm not, questioning the goodwill, everyone here and everyone who has come and talked to us, right? We all have the goodwill.
Yes.
But I think at the end of the day, we need to take a very hard look at the resources that are scarce for this population. Because again, we can have very high expectations, but if we do not put the resources behind those expectations, it's like, it's like being hopeful that something's going to change, but it's not going to change. We know what's going to change is we're going to have more kids entering into EML, right?
Yes.
So we know there's going to be more need. So if there's more need and we have kept it at the same level for years, how is it that we can actually make a difference, right? So again, for me, it's like 2 coaches really for 32,000 plus kids.
Yes. Well, I will say that I know with the idea of the cross-functional teams, one of the standard representative that will be on that team is an ELD specialist. So when moving to that structure, you would have an ELD specialist on every one of those teams. There's you know, the continued work that the central office team would have to do, and then those supports that would be deployed to the schools.
And I don't want to put Roy on the spot, but you're doing an amazing work. But I'm going to put you on the spot because you are a community school. So, you know, so in a community school, a middle school, that is actually a rarity, really. And I know the work you do because we do a lot of work together.
Yes, we do.
So even with that, though, with all the support, what I'm hearing across the board from all the schools that came here is that we're still lacking what we need to be able to respond in an adequate way to support EML students. So if you had a wish list, because you know you're already ahead of the game, you have a ELD content specialist, so everybody's salivating, you know, saying, "Oh my gosh, you have an ELD content specialist." But even with that, Roy, what you're saying is we need more support.
Yeah, absolutely. The data that Ms. Hewlett teed up really speaks to the story. You see that stall in the middle, right? And when you think about, you asked a question about pre-K and the connection to literacy. If you were to count up the number of reading licenses on Watkins Mill Drive from 355 to 355, that's a lot of reading licenses and a lot of need. And with rolling out new curriculum at the elementary level, and then trying to compare apples to oranges at the secondary level, the opportunity to have vertical articulation conversations about kids who have been at a stall at level 2 since 3rd grade only happens because I work in a group of, you know, a cluster of principals who this is the work. We're just going to make these, you know, these articulation processes part of how we run things, but we know that it's not uniform and it's not, there's no guarantee that it's going to last once different people are in different seats.
And can you shout out your cluster real quick, please?
Watkins Mill cluster all day.
Way to go, Watkins Mill.
Yes.
And I'm honored to represent Watkins Mill cluster. And I know when Ms. Montoya brought up the farms, you know, situation, that is a key ingredient of the work that we're doing. And it's, you know, it's huge. Half of your population or more.
Yeah, and can I just, sorry, you said something about a wish list, and I just don't want to let that go. One of the things that we created last year was, so I had the content specialist since my first year as principal. We created an EML team leader, right, to help balance both in school support, whether it's culture, climate, social issues. That went away. One, because of Title I funds being decreased, but my EML team leader became my community school liaison, which was a huge win for me and for our community. But that piece of having either an instructional support or some other additional SEL supports for the challenges that our newcomers experience, our language learners experience, you know, my team at school right now, like many schools, is ready for anything that comes down the pike from the feds. Like that impact on staff is so significant, obviously on students. And so being purposeful in answering the question that you asked, if you look at special ed, you look at farms, you look at language learners, Thomas has been saying that makes sense to deploy funds in that way. I'm very excited to see what that looks like.
Well, I just want to say, for one, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Magruder, for, you know, for seeing the vision and wanting to do more and doing the collaboration that is so much needed, and for focusing on the academic achievement of our EML students and the crossover with a lot of our IEP students as well. I look forward to seeing and look forward to visiting you again. Although I visited you a year and a half ago, I'll be visiting some of you again. But I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, and that to keep in mind that we're really just doing the functionality of it. But if we really want to make some differences in the EML population, it needs to be a huge priority for the system, but it needs to be a huge priority with funding. So I appreciate you being here today. And with that, I wish you safe travels back to some to the Up County and some to right around the corner. I'd like to, I'm sorry for delaying and forgive me. Today is my first, as chair, and so I'm trying to be as diligent as I can. So we can have our next group with the alternative programs and move on. I appreciate it.
And thank you for your creativity, Ms. Russian. Thank you. I was looking at your slides. They look wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay, as we have the team, they're going to give us an update on Blair Ewing. Right, welcome. If you can introduce yourselves very quickly. I know you all, but for the sake of the audience.
DJ Conley, Capital Budget Manager.
Adnan Mamoon, Deputy Chief of Facilities.
Damon Monteleone, Associate Superintendent.
Thank you. My first time here.
Oh, no, I did that earlier. You missed it.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Damian Ingram. I am the principal of the Blair G. Ewing Center.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is in response to some activity that has been going on at Blair Ewing. We just, since we are the Committee on Special Populations, I did not want to wait until we have some discussion and an update on. And so, Mr. Monteleone, I think part of our agenda for next year is going to be looking at all these programs more diligently with really what is our mission, what do we want to accomplish, what are the outcome measures, how are we measuring, how are we following, and how we are delivering to these populations, and whether we have what it takes in staff and resources to ensure that not just Blair Ewing, but our other programs are also up to what they need to be in order to serve our children and youth. So if you would like to take it away.
Sure, and thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And we appreciate that vision looking forward to next year. And many of those conversations have already really begun. I was fortunate to be able to be brought on board to work with Alternative 2, I guess, as of July 1. So my work in direct supervision is relatively new, but I've learned so much. I can provide, I guess, for our intent and purpose. I know a lot of the questions may be around facilities and or the security question about the personnel, and we can certainly hit that. But I'll just do a very, very brief kind of overview. And then I think my colleagues here from facilities will speak to any details. I mean, I was going to kind of pass the baton for details on what's happening with facilities. But I think suffice it to say, to your point, right, so alternative programs is in a place where we, with our new leadership and where we are headed and how we are going to build that out programmatically, and the learning environment that we want to ensure that all of our students that attend are able to access, and all of this is certainly in the works. I think a few things to be clear on with respect to alternative moving forward this year. We wanted to codify some processes into alternative programs this year, right? So in October 24th, our principals received a memorandum on the process to make it clear for how any student would be potentially recommended to Alternative 2 outside of our existing processes, such as APAC or the 10E expulsion process. We've also done a lot of work this year in codifying some new law that came down from Comar with respect to reportable offenses, what that process looks like, and the process for students potentially being placed at Alternative 2 as a result of a reportable offense violation. So there has been some regulations and some memorandum work that has been done between OGC and OSSI. But I think beyond that, I've had the opportunity to come out to Alternative 2 at least once a month for my visits, but have been in direct support of that program on multiple occasions. As you may or may not be aware, Alternative 2 programs were broken down into 3 separate sites for the last several years, Down County and Up County, and then the central location here in Rockville. We were made aware, I think in May of last year, that one of those sites would no longer be in operation, that MCPS would not be renewing that lease, and we found that out late in the game, really in May. And then we were able to pivot and have 2 of the sites, both the Up County and the central site, housed at Alternative 2. The Down County site, which is in an office building area, is being maintained for this year. And again, we can speak to some of the details with the sites. But essentially, we are in a place right now where we have our security is staffed. I would just say, with respect to some of the information that came out in that article, we've had 5 fights perhaps this year, and Damien can speak to some of the details. But some of the problems that folks may be talking about potentially could be a result of having 2 sites in one location, right? Let's be honest. And Dr. Ingram can speak to some of the work that he's done, and certainly we've had some security pieces put in place there. But we have not had an extraordinary amount of fights, right, or suspensions or violent activity at Alternative 2 this year as compared to last year. And if we look at the serious incidents, again, I think we've had 5 so far this year. But I don't know if you want to speak to anything else.
It's actually less than 5. We pride ourselves on working with our students and developing personal relationships with them so that when they're having issues or having some concerns, that they can turn to us and share what those concerns are, and then we can mediate whatever the issue may be and avoid these types of incidents. It's very unfortunate that this year we had one major incident in which 2 administrators were hurt, and I was one of them. But it wasn't anything outside of the norm of what would occur in a comprehensive school.
Yeah, very quickly, when you refer to the moving of another school, are you referring to Cloverly that was closed in Germantown?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that you found out when that was being closed?
The staff was actually officially informed in May.
Okay.
What transpired with that was some communication with the landlord back in, I believe, March was the original date where our staff was having conversation with the landlord. And from that, I initially reached out to my director at that time, Chris Turk. He reached out to Mr. Adams, and then from there, the ball started to roll in terms of what was actually going on. But the staff was not informed until May.
Okay. Ms. Montoya, you have a quick question?
I do. Just a quick one for the public and perhaps for us as well. Can you tell me about how many students are we talking here? Is this 1,500 students, 200 students, 50? Just ballpark.
Currently, we're serving 129 students.
Across the 2 sites?
Correct.
Collectively. Okay, thank you.
Collectively, we only house 180 students at a given time, up to 180.
Between the Clovery School and the Blair Ewing?
All 3 sites.
Oh, no, all the sites. Okay. Go ahead.
Can you let us know and the public know how many security staff you have?
We have 1 security assistant per site, so that would be a total of 3 for the program.
And so in this one building that share, there's 2 security staff?
That is
one
correct.
One for each school?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I would like to go a little bit, and we'll bring you back in the future, but one of the things that concerns me is about academics, and whether we have the adequate staff for academics in the school, and also just the whole, so the way that I see it's a program, it's really not a school, correct? So I should correct myself. It's a program, and it's an alternative program. So it should not be a long-term placement but I would like to see the data of for the last 3 years of the state of how long kids have stayed at that program, and whether, Mr. Ingram, I know you were out, so that's why I was glad to see you today. Whether or not that the academic component is there, and then how we measure that, how we measure when they come in, how we measure when they go out, how we follow those students, like we do with the EML. Once they leave, level 4, there's a 2-year mandatory follow-up. What do we do in MCPS with our alternative programs when that happens? How do we follow the kids? How do we keep data of the repeat rolling, the repeat kind of offenders of them coming back, and do we differentiate the data? So there's just so many questions that I have, but most importantly, I think is that to make sure that the staffing for learning is there. But Mr. Monteleone, if you want to go to facilities, that is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll pass to them. I just want to say that we are in like staffing request season, right? So those conversations are happening with my colleagues that directly supervise all of the comprehensive schools, and Dr. Moran. And Dr. Ingram and I have put forward a staffing request that does augment add special educators. We're asking for 3 additional special educators. We're asking for an additional special education resource teacher, some electives, additional counselors, right? So we are asking for some additional staff. I think one of the areas that we could see, I think, some staffing commensurate with the needs that are there, as well as I think aligned to some of the opportunities that our comprehensive schools are with the elective opportunities, and then ensuring that we have the right special educators there, so that when students are placed at alternative programs, we can meet their IEP needs. So that is absolutely a priority and something that we have put forward. But I'll pass it over to my colleagues in facilities.
Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. So we were visiting the site at Blair Ewing because of the recent attention brought to some of the concerns about indoor air quality as well as asbestos. So just an update, there were some work orders generated by the schools about indoor air quality in September and October. Our teams, the air quality team as well as our maintenance teams, went there. They have performed work orders that replaced there were some drywall and ceiling damage because of a roof leak. So the roof was repaired, the walls and ceilings were replaced. And then we've had our HVAC team go in there and sanitize the equipment, update it, and everything else. So those work orders that were generated back in September and October, they have been taken care of. All of our classrooms in that building, just like every other classroom in the county, is equipped with air quality monitoring. So those are being consistently monitored. And then, as I said, the concerns about those ceiling tiles that looked like they had spots in it, all of those have been replaced. All the work has been done. There were other concerns that was brought up about asbestos, and our air quality team and compliance team has been working regularly with the school, and basically also doing some abatement in part by part. Because of the logistics of removing ceiling tile, it requires the rooms to be emptied out before the work can be done. So we were, consistently scheduling that with the school. Now, a lot of, the pictures that you might have seen had, the stickers that says asbestos-containing tile. That's actually the normal procedure. That is the legal procedure when there is a asbestos-containing tile available. Federal guidelines mandate that you put those stickers up so people know if they need to go into those ceiling for any work, that they can contact the right personnel. So I visited the school with my team on the 16th, so last week, and we got in with the administrators at the school. We walked through and talked to the building services folks. So all the concerns about the air quality, work orders and everything else has been completed and checked by our air quality folks. There's only one area remain that still contains, it's an administrative office that still contains the asbestos tiles, and that is scheduled to be replaced in February. We have communicated that with the school because they do have to because it's an administrative office, it requires us to get a long weekend so that the items in those rooms could be moved out and we can perform the work. once that's done, that all the ceiling tiles that contained asbestos in that building will be removed.
In February, you're looking at what, President's Week?
I don't have the date, yes, but that would
it's-
be one of the long weekend we would be targeting. So it would have to give us enough days to be able to do the work, take the ceiling tile out, put the new tiles in. Also, we have to check the air quality after the work is done to make sure it can be occupied.
And that was the only thing pending, is that correct?
That is correct.
Everything else been taken care of. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much. Mr. Ingram, would you like to say anything else?
Thank you for the opportunity to share correct information, update you about our school, and we welcome you anytime you want to come past our school. It's an open door policy.
Thank you. I will see you soon. I think they're scheduling as we speak to fit in a visit, and I think some of my colleagues are coming with me. So it would be great to go see you, and thank you for the work that you do. Running any program is challenging, but as someone who ran a program similar to this, I know it can have more challenges, especially in today's era and time, especially after COVID. So
Right.
I truly appreciate the work, and like I told Mr. Monteleone, where this is, I think, this is going to be one of the focuses for the committee next year, to really look at the programs and whether we're doing what we need to be doing to make sure that the kids in those programs are actually getting what they need, and to making sure that Dr. Ingram and your other colleagues who run alternative programs have what they need to be able to do your job. I always admire folks who work in this field, because this is not a profession. This is really a mission for many of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
To you and to your staff. Godspeed, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much to both of you. I know you both have quite a few things more to do and places to go and things to fix. So I appreciate you being here, and I don't want to delay you anymore because it's a lot to do with 211 schools. So Mr. Monteleone, thank you so much for being here. And with that, colleagues, thank you so much for being with me on our first meeting as the chair. So I'm excited to do this. So meeting adjourned. Thank you.